Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Connection, where industry expert Doug Plucknett interviews global leaders from the maintenance and reliability industry. Each week, new leaders will join us with insights and tips to help you grow in your career, and they'll share a good story or two while they're at it as well. The Leadership Connection is produced by the industry's leading networking and learning community, Mobius Connect. Doug, over to you.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it happens to be for you while you're tuning in and listening to this. I'm Doug Plucknett, and this is the Leadership Connection. Today, I have a guest all the way from the UK. Will Bauer is with us today. And Will, how's it going?
It's going great. How you keeping, Doug? It's been a bit of a busy week, to be honest. It's going great, to be honest. We've had a great week. We've been a lot of different customers. So, yeah, it's been really good. I'm feeling really good today.
Very good. Well, thank God, as we say in the US, it's Friday. All right?
Yeah, definitely. I'm a bit of a weird one. I kind of look forward to Monday now, which is a bit of an odd scenario. It hasn't always been that way, but I think since I kind of started maintaining, it's been a bit of a different outlook for me, definitely.
Okay, so starting out, Will, since I'm not really familiar with you. We've just met here in the last 5 minutes, other than a quick conversation on LinkedIn. I'm excited to have you as a guest, but tell us a bit about your background, your education, your career, the roles that you worked in.
Right, so, I mean, originally from school, I've always been very intrigued about how the world works. I think science for me was always so important because it was just so mysterious in terms of understanding like energy and understanding what, like vibration was. And when I started to look into it deeply, it did really resonate with trying to understand exactly how the world operated. So I've always been really inquisitive about kind of like how things are made, how things are done. So I think engineering was always something a part of me, even from an early age, even though I may not have been aware of it, So straight from school, I knew that engineering was kind of like the path I wanted to go down. And I went to college, I did a HNC and a HND in electronic engineering. And fortunately, I managed to get a job with a company called Erics that did electromechanical repairs. And that was really the starting point of my journey. So they allowed me to go on a day release so I could do my HNC top-up 1 day a week at college, whilst I gained some really good experience. And my first ever job was actually an armature winder, putting copper back into motors and winding. So it was a bit of a niche job actually at the time, because not many people understood what it was, and even trying to explain to people what I did was very confusing for some people. So it was a real blessing, really, to be honest, to be able to get involved with doing that, because it taught me a lot originally.
Very good. So starting out here, looking at your career to this point, are there some people that you've worked with that you've seen as mentors? Don't be afraid to mention names. And what did you learn from those people going forward that you now put, like, say, in your toolbox and say, boy, there's something I'm going to use for the rest of my life?
Well, I've not really had specific mentors in the sense that, I've had some great people I've learned from within my company, and there's been great people like Richard Thompson, for example. I'm very good friends with him now. He's very well known on LinkedIn. But at time when we were both at Erics, he had a great vast knowledge of electrical motors and electrical fluid issues and problems with bearing defects and stuff like that. And he's taught me a lot of different things. But I would say in terms of like real mentors, I would say people that I haven't actually met. So there's books I've read, and there's people that have inspired me heavily in terms of like understanding what real leadership is. And I'd say the one of the biggest inspirations would be Simon Sinek. And you've probably heard of Simon Sinek and his books and what he's done. And there was a couple of books that really, really kind of grabbed me into a new way and a new perspective of thinking in terms of leadership. And one of them was called The Infinite Game, and one was called Start With Why. And he was just, for me, he just opened my mind up to a brand new perspective of understanding what real leadership is and how trust is so important in any organization, and how, a lot of the time I feel we've always got very short-term goals, that, are almost finite goals, but the long-term just causes are the things that get us out of bed every morning.
Well, you talked about a couple books in leadership. Prior to that, you discussed a little bit about vibration. And I'm a person that, in all the years of the business that I've been, I understand vibration analysis, what it's for, how it's used, the applications of it, right? But when it comes to looking at that vibration data, right, when I look at that trend, I go, I guess it looks like a caterpillar, maybe a butterfly, right? How do you, when it comes to explaining things like vibration to people, where it's really important, you've got an asset, a piece of rotating equipment that, it's in the process. You can see that through that data, it's in the process of failing. How do you get that point across to people like myself that look at that data and go, what in the world is that?
Yeah, it can be a difficult one, because I think, on a daily basis, we deal with engineering managers that are very technical and love to understand exactly what they're seeing with spectral analysis. But then you get the other engineering managers that really don't understand it in terms of, the way it is. But I think what is really important is to be able to convey the information in a way that is understandable. And, I think really to focus on the effects of what it potentially could cause. Because for some engineering managers, it may just be loads of squiggly lines. But what we are essentially is the guide to be able to translate that information. And we've got to be the communication the communication bridge between an analytical data to the recommendation. So I think a lot of trust is needed, for us guys as well. Because if we are saying, for example, go change the bearings on a 500 kilowatt motor, it is, going to cause some disruption to production. It's going to cost money to do so. So the trust has to be there, regardless whether the understanding is or not. And I feel that as a company, we're very conscious and we're very kind of good at breaking down complex information into information that can be understood, into more simple layman's terms. And as well, we can convey that information into black and white, to basically say, look, this is what the information is saying. This is why it's saying that. And this is the recommendation that we, really recommend. So you don't actually face any failure or any sort of pain that's going to be able to cause big disruption in the present moment as well. So yeah, a lot of trust, good communication, and as well, what we can do sometimes is use ultrasound as a bit of more of a way to understand. So say, for example, you're looking at a spectrum, you say, well, I don't understand any of this. What our ACOM allows us to do as well is play the time waveform signal. So people can hear what's going on. And we all know what sounds kind of good and what kind of sounds bad. And that is a great way. So ultrasound as well is an incredible way so people can listen and be involved in that process without necessarily not understanding from a visual point of view as well.
Very good. When would you say in your career you were first recognized as a leader? What were you doing, and how did that recognition come about?
I think the first time I was kind of recognized as a leader was when I actually took on my first employee about 6 months ago. So I've always been very passionate about what I do, and I've always really, embraced it, and I love helping customers achieve reliability, and that's kind of like one of our big whys to what we do. We're in this business to be able to really guide people to be able to get to reliability excellence, and it's kind of in our tagline. So I think for me, I found that I was a leader when I was kind of putting out this energy in terms of like basically saying I care, and fortunately I attracted the right person who resonated the same energy as me in terms of really trying to drive that goal. So when I actually brought him onto the business, that's when I really took the role to become a leader. And by becoming a leader, I kind of naturally showcased it to the world as well by inspiring him to be able to drive our company to achieve the goals for our customers as well.
Very good. It's been said that you can either be a leader or a manager. What do you think of that statement?
It's to be honest, it's something Simon Sinek does talk about a lot, actually, because a leader is very different to a manager, I feel. I feel like a leader inspires people to work. So inspiration is very different to motivation. When you're inspired, it comes from inside. It comes from an intrinsic why you want to be able to provide a service. And when you're inspired, you don't need to be motivated. You've got this internal thing that brings the best out of you to be able to do the best job. And that's what a leader does. A leader really shows by example and inspires their employees to be able to take action in the same way the leader does. A manager has to use a lot of motivational techniques. So when you're having to motivate someone, it's very short-lived, I feel. So you could potentially motivate someone with bonuses or money or these motivational factors that won't last forever. They're very finite, they're very short-term. So a manager has to keep kind of going into this motivation way to get their employees to get the best out of them. Whereas a leader, by leading by example, can inspire their people to be able to follow in a way that the leader is. So they're two very different things. Management obviously is always needed regardless. But a true just how we say manager, I feel, is very different to a leader. And I think if you want to be able to manage effectively, if you become a leader, you won't need to be able to keep trying to push your employees to work or having to keep an eye on them, because when they're inspired, they will work off their own back. They will, be inspired to be able to achieve what they need to achieve themselves.
All right. So you just spoke that you had to hire somebody in the past here. And so if you were looking for a leader, what are some of the traits that you would look for in a person that you're looking to hire?
I would first initially look at the reason of why they want to do what they do. That the whys have to match. The belief systems of myself and the belief systems of the people we're looking for, they have to be a match. And that is, I think, intrinsically the first most important thing for us to be able to look for. Say, for example, if we're kind of trying to find a leader within our industry to be able to provide the best service possible. Because if our beliefs don't match, then it can be very difficult to proceed in a way that is beneficial for both parties. Because if they don't believe what you believe, then there can be some discrepancies of ideas. So when we're looking for a leader, really we want to have someone who's very open-minded, who's willing to learn new things, and ultimately has a real passion for what they do and has a really strong reason why they're doing it.
All right. And so getting into the motivation that you speak of, I've often told people that we have a kind of a breakdown of employees when you're looking at a large organization, which I learned early on in my career, we called it 10-80-10, right? You have the 10% at the bottom that are troubled employees, the 80% in the middle that can be motivated to do things. They come to work every day to do a good job, but they need some leadership. And then you have the top 10, which I call intrinsically motivated. It doesn't matter what you do, right? There are people that are going to come in and they're going to perform without very little guidance or motivation, right?
They're inspired, definitely.
Back when I was looking at people and hiring, I always thought about, my background was I grew up on a farm, and any kid that worked on a farm, most were intrinsically motivated, right? Whether it was a family business or somebody very close to them, they knew what their job and their responsibilities were day in and day out, and so they had this work ethic, right?
I see,
That's true, right? It's not always true, but that's what you look for, right? That intrinsic motivation. Looking at it, your career and how you've done that, is that something you'd say is maybe one of your traits that people have recognized?
I think so, yeah. And I think I was very fortunate actually to be kind of mistreated by my previous employer, because it kind of taught me how not to be, you know what I mean? And do you know what? I'm actually grateful for that experience of that awareness as well, because without it, I wouldn't A, be where I am now, and B, I wouldn't be able to kind of, give the reins to my I wouldn't even call him employee. I call him a friend, you know. And I think this is where it differs for certain companies, because even, you know, we're both Will, actually. Ironically, I've employed someone who's got the same name as me, which is incredible. And we have this tagline: when there's a will, there's a way, and when there's two wills, there's always a way. So we've got this great tagline going on, and people are loving it as well. And obviously, we've got a podcast as well, Reliable Talk, where we're both talking and engaging with certain things. And we do talk about a lot of this leadership stuff as well, which is really aligned with what you're doing, Doug, as well, which we find really, really inspiring. But I mean, I think, you know, when he come on board, he also spoke to me about his experiences of not being trusted. So, you know, it's little things, Doug. It's a bit like, you know, when you have to go book a hotel because you're staying away, you know, his previous employer would have to book it for him. You know what I mean? And there'd be no element of trust of actually having a little bit of freedom just to be able to, you know, just have that little bit of freedom. And I think when you're restricted in that way, you know, you create this barrier. And when you create this barrier, it's just not good for working relationships. And it's just not good to be able to feel trusted with, you know, with what you're doing. And, you know, I always have to, you know, make sure that I'm almost giving him the air to breathe and learn as much as he possibly can on his own back, but as well be there to support. So, you know, I'm always a support network for him, and he knows if he has any, you know, concerns with vibration data or anything that you need to look at, I am there always to look at it. But at the same time, I kind of let him have the free reign to be able to go out there and really learn himself as well. So that balance is very important, I think, definitely.
All right, and that gets into also the importance of communication in that relationship, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely, and yeah.
And employees, I've always told a boss. We had one particular boss that we had an employee that he was. If you understood maintenance and the aspects of what needs to be done and troubleshooting, this guy was top notch. But he was also a guy that was always going to tell you exactly what was on his mind, right? And some bosses have a very difficult time with that, right? And his particular boss came to me at one time and said, "Hey, this guy, all of a sudden he's going quiet."
Yeah.
And I said, "You have problems." And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "When you have a top-notch employee that has been coming in and complaining about particular things, and when that person goes quiet, you have a serious communication issue, right?"
I think
that's
so, yeah.
that you better worry about. He might just up and go somewhere else. So you need to bring that person in and find out what's going on, because that silence is meaningful, right? There's
indication
of work behind that, right?
Yeah, agree. I agree, Doug.
Right.
You
so
know,
when you look at that relationship and talking about the importance of trust, communication is a big part of that. Right.
I agree. Yeah.
So, looking at your career at this point, Will, what would you say you're most proud of? What's your accomplishment that you would tell the audience that you're most proud of?
There's two. There's two, I'd say, in terms of my career of Maintain. And, you know, I'm proud of the passion that we bring. I'm proud of that. Like every single day we wake up and we've got such a purpose and such a reason why we come to work. I'm just so proud of the message behind of what we're trying to do. You know, and I'm proud of that I've created this company where I was really unhappy at my old place, and it wasn't the fact that it was the work that I disliked. I love the work. I love reliability. I always have done. But for me, that I'm really proud that I've created a company that really values the feelings of their employees, and we're just at the start of our journey. And you know, I'm really proud that the fact that Will as well, he's inspired. He loves what he does. You know, I have to tell him to stop working sometimes. And you know, it's like I'm seeing emails fly out on the weekend. I'm like, Will, what are you doing? Like this is your, and he's just loving what he's doing. So I'm really, really proud of the fact that we're building a company that is very, very conscious of our employees and how they feel and their happiness. And as well, we're very kind of, we have an infinite goal of really improving reliability for our customers as well. So, you know, this is not just about us, it's bigger than us in terms of our why. And I'm very proud that we carry the passion to be able to bring us to our goals as well.
Okay, so looking at what you do, specifically the vibration end of this, one of the things that customers struggle with the most that are out there using this tool, whether they're hiring someone like yourself to come in and do it or trying to do it, have their employees do it, is the issue of, okay, we've detected a fault in a piece of rotating equipment. It's not the fact that you need to change it, it's understanding what the cause is. How do you get customers to understand that look, it's not, look, I've detected something, it's important that you now take some type of action, but it's more important to understand why are we saying this?
A root cause analysis is so important. And, you know, we're not just a condition monitoring company either. You know, we really look at the reliability, and to improve reliability, you must understand the root cause, because there's no other way of making practices better afterwards. So, you know, we really try to you know, make the customer aware that a lot of the failures happen on a plant can be avoided. You know, I mean, I think a study said about 70% of bearing defects do come from poor lubrication. So, you know, when you see them figures and you see a lot of failures happen, and you start to see the reason why they're failing, whether that be poor lubrication practices or, you know, over lubrication can be another one. It can go either way. And when you start to see that a lot of, you know, factories don't have the awareness that what they're doing on that level is so effective in terms of their failures, that's when you can start to raise awareness to it. And, you know, for us, it's very important that we kind of say, right, every single defect we do find, we always try to keep the bearing. So say, for example, we find a defect in a bearing, and, you know, we get the bearing out and they get it repaired. And we sometimes, we as well, we do the bearing replacements as well. So we'll keep the bearing as well. We'll cut the bearing open. We'll have a look at the wear patterns inside that bearing, and we'll have a look at the reason why it failed. And we'll have a lot of great suggestions to say, right, when the new motor goes back into place, we need to make sure that it is aligned properly, or, you know, it hasn't got soft foot issues or problems. Or if it has electrical fluid inside that bearing, what can we do to measure that shaft current, and how can we avoid it from happening again? So whether that be a shaft grounding ring, or whether that be looking at the application and understanding whether it has sufficient earths from the inverter and what is actually happening at that end. So, you know, the thing is about us, I think we're turning more into a reliability company, and I think condition monitoring companies are a thing of the past. I think nowadays, you know, companies are evolving, and they're evolving into reliability companies where they use condition monitoring techniques to understand how to improve the reliability. So that's kind of like where we're going in our journey. And as well, I feel like it is the future. A lot of companies will follow suit in that way as well.
Well, it certainly is a natural progression when you think about it, because now we're getting into smart machines and continuous monitoring, right, that comes with the equipment. And it's one of those things. I just recently had a customer that I said, okay, you've got a smart machine, right? It's capable of monitoring many things full time, all right? It's not, however, smart enough to tell you why.
Exactly.
You have a fault, right?
That's the thing.
You have to yourself as a company learn to progress with that equipment. And I think that's an important part about what your company will be doing is teaching those companies to say, all right, here's what you got with your new piece of equipment. Here's how you're going to have to manage this, right? It's way more important to understand why it failed than the fact that it is failing. Right?
Yeah, I agree, Doug. You hit the nail on the head there. You hit the nail on the head. And, you know, that's what we're trying to do as a company in the UK. Because even my previous company, you know, like, the thing is, right, with the other part, the reliability part, that part is very difficult to charge for sometimes. And my previous company was, oh no, great, we'll let them know when stuff is going to fail. But when we wanted to digress further into the root cause analysis, it takes time. You know, of course it takes time. You need to look at, you know, elements, and you need to suggest new things. And when, you know, I wanted to suggest that we evolve this and we start looking at these things. Unfortunately, a lot of companies look at the finite goals, and Simon Sinek says it great with his book, that a lot of people are looking for the short-term wins and they're not looking at the long-term goals. And reliability is a long-term, it's a forever, it's an infinite goal. It's something that you're continuously striving towards. It's not something that you can kind of solve within 2 weeks or a short period of time. So, we've got to look at the long game when it comes to reliability, because, when you're looking at cost of it, it's very difficult to measure future savings when the savings are going to be made over 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. A lot of people will look at the projections after 1 year or 2 years. And when you're trying to improve your reliability, it may cost you a lot of money to get that reliability into a machine, but you may not see the payback on that after a long period of time. And a lot of people's goals are very short-sighted, so they don't get to the stage where the plant is reliable because they're always looking at short-term metrics and KPIs that are based around short-term wins and monetary wins rather than reliability, wins as well.
All right. So, Will, it's been a pleasure meeting you today and having this discussion. You're certainly an energetic guy and one of the new faces out there in the world of reliability. And boy, I'll tell you, we are a community that is desperate for new faces. So,
I love what you're doing. I love what you guys are doing at Mobius, and I really want to become a part of this journey with you guys, because that's what we're looking to do. We're just trying to connect with like-minded reliability engineers that will have passion for it. And I can even tell you, Doug, you've got great passion for this as well. And I love what you're doing. So, much respect to yourself and the podcast, because it spreads awareness, and it aligns with my goals for creating reliability excellence for everyone. Definitely.
And it gives an old guy like me something to do in that semi-retirement years.
Well done. You've got a lot of knowledge there. You've got a lot of experience. You've got a lot of knowledge. You've got a lot of passion. So remember, there's always, something you can bring. There's always new people like me, young whippersnappers like me, who want to learn as much as possible, and you've got a lot of experience. So, thank you for doing this. It's great that you're putting that good energy out there as well.
All right, my friend, have a great day. This has been Doug Plucknett with the Leadership Connection. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Leadership Connection. We will see you back for another episode next week. In between, we hope to see you in the Mobius Connect community, where you can meet Doug and share with other industry professionals at mobiusconnect.com. We'll see you there.